welcome Dr. Michael Huber to episode 1 of our Founders Series podcast, sponsored by Sudden Impact Marketing here in Columbus, and really appreciate you coming down from Cleveland to spend a little bit of time with us, and hope the trip was good. You got here without any eventful trouble or anything.
Everything was great. No, thanks for having us.
Yeah.
We're excited to be part of this.
Great. You know, one of the things that we do in the series is we talk about markets, we talk about technology, leadership, innovation, and in the context of storytelling. Storytelling is often a lost art. It's become commoditized. It's become short-formed with social media and thumb scrolling, and the attention span of the modern listener is being acutely affected in its ability to listen in. And so one of the goals is to sort of wipe the slate clean and give those who might listen in to hear your story a fresh chance and some fresh ears and perspective to really understand what you do, what your vision is, and where you hope to go. And our perspective is that every untold story is opportunity. And yet poorly told ones are forgettable. The good ones are investable. The great ones, those great stories become transcendent over time, in that we read of them in the past and say, remember when?
Mm-hmm.
As we were talking about some of the stories of the Triple Crown winners earlier,
Mm-hmm.
We remember those stories. So that's the hope here today, and I appreciate you giving us your time to talk about what you are up to these days. So with that being said, why don't you tell me, give me a little bit of background about who you're working with, how you came to be in your current role as CEO of Carabloom, and what your focus is.
Yeah. Again, thanks. My name is Dr. Michael Huber. I'm a physician, and my background started in hospital medicine. And I was the founder and CEO of a hospitalist group. And so I've always had a passion for caring for patients in the hospital setting, but really started to get involved in what we call post-acute medicine or post-hospital medicine. Patients that, are moving from the hospital to nursing homes or other rehabilitation settings, home care, that kind of thing. And so as the leader of the hospice group, we started getting involved in that kind of care. And when I exited out of the hospice organization, I started a post-acute medicine practice. It was because of that experience and my knowledge and expertise in that area that I got introduced to Carabloom, because they were developing a product that was really built for the post-acute care to really improve that care. And so a mutual friend who knew Lindsay Friedman, our founder, and knew me, put us together. And when I heard of the product, it really intrigued me, because it really was a product that could be a game changer for the post-acute medicine and help solve some of the problems that exist in that space. And so my passion was, very intrigued by it. So I became an advisor for the tech early on, but about a year ago, they asked me to take over the CEO role because of my experience with startups and building companies. Yeah. So that's how I got involved.
That's great. And for those of us who didn't grow up in the medical community, what do you mean by post-acute care world?
Yeah. So post-acute medicine is really patients that are discharged from the hospital that need to go to, let's say, nursing homes, or maybe assisted living, or even home with home health care. They need some added help when they're discharged from that hospital, because their care isn't over. Their care needs to continue, and they need to continue on a good trajectory back towards home in their prior state. So that's kind of a global term that we use as post-acute medicine, but it encompasses a lot of different facilities, from, like I said, nursing home, assisted living, other acute rehabilitation, long-term acute care hospitals, and even home with home care.
Okay. So I recall in talking with you, your experience as a medical practitioner was very strong in the area of transitions. Could you
Yes.
talk a little bit more about
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. I mean, sorry for interrupting, but it is one of my passions. As a hospital, and my kind of leadership or expertise in the hospital medicine is what we call transition of care. So that's just when patients transition from, let's say, the ER to the hospital, floor, or to the ICU, or from the ICU to the floor. All those transitions of care really require a lot of care, a lot of hands-on care to make sure that handoff is handled successfully. But what I was most passionate about is not only the transitions of care within the facilities, but from facility to facility, because that's when patients are most vulnerable, and that's when a lot of mistakes could occur. So it's always intrigued me to have systems or devices or something that can aid in that. And that's one of the things that Carabloom does, is it really helps with those kinds of transitions of care to make sure that care is continuing and patients remain on that good trajectory of health to ultimately get them home or back in their usual state. So,
Gotcha. Tell us, with that being the context of, it sounds like you're bringing real world expertise in these moments where the ship can kind of go off track, per se, in a person's health, and that passion and understanding of what it really takes to make that a successful outcome for the person being cared for. You have this context of a rising or an aging baby boomer population, and a growing expectation that if I can age at home, I would like to age at home, barring major disruptions. And yet that, from stories, you probably lost count of stories where that becomes untenable, problematic for various reasons. Tell us about the product that you're developing, and how it behaves and how it addresses. Again, technology for technology's sake is boring, but technology that addresses real pain or gaps or problems. Tell us how that solves something that exists as a pain point.
Sure. So the system and we call it a system, but it's a remote patient monitoring device, or remote patient monitoring system that really is built for the post-acute world.
Okay.
And it's unique, and there's a lot of RPMs, is the short acronym for remote patient monitoring. There's a lot of devices out there, but ours is unique in the sense that it does two critical things. Number one, it's really looking for accurate patient monitoring, looking for changes in their behaviors or patterns of behavior or patterns of activities of daily living as they go through their day that are really warning signs of something that may be impending, a larger impending failure. So that's number one. The other function that it really drives is it's really intersected, that first part is really intersected with the patient caregiver interaction and monitoring that and making sure that those occur, or notifying when they don't occur. And doing those two things together, we can start to look for patterns that a failure may be forthcoming. And so that then prompts intervention and assessment when you may not otherwise know that something's going on, so that we can prevent failures and we can prevent avoidable complications.
And when you say failures, do you mean things like a fall or something that sends them back to the hospital from the home?
Exactly. A fall is a great example.
Okay.
So when somebody has a major fall, it's usually one of two things that cause that. It's either just a mechanical fall. That's when somebody just trips over a curb or falls over the cat, right?
Yeah.
Or a medical fall, which is more serious. That means that there's some condition that's changed in the patient that's probably leading them towards that fall. In today's world, it's hard to decipher what that is. We're relying on history, and the history is often unreliable, because patients want to minimize their symptoms a lot of the times, and they always tripped over the cat. With our system, we're going to start to know because we can detect small changes in their gait, stagnation. We can detect smaller falls or stumbles. And with that, we're also going to we're going to start to measure their blood pressure and pulse and other vital signs during those events and after those events.
Mm-hmm.
So we can get some insight into maybe this is a medical fall and not a mechanical fall, and we can intervene. And so if we can intervene at an earlier stage, we can prevent that major fall where they fall now and break their hip, which
I see.
then becomes, changes the prognosis of that patient dramatically. A patient who falls and breaks their hip, the mortality can be as high as 50% within 1 year.
Really?
And so if we can get ahead of that, then we can start to really impact falls. And falls is just one example.
So there's a proactive, preventative, predictive monitoring aspect of improving health. Is there also a communication side to what you guys are building with? I know, having lived through watching my parents care for their parents, there's only so many visits any caretaker, if their family, can make. Sometimes there's other caretakers involved, and there's always a lingering just burden on the family caretakers that I'm not there. How are they doing? Or if they're entrusted to someone else, how well are they doing with caring for my mother or my father? Can you speak to that side of it?
Absolutely. And I think that is the third problem. I think I identified the first problem as proper patient monitoring. Second is that patient caregiver interaction. But the third is communication. That's the other problem that we're trying to address. And it's very, patients and families are often starving for the correct information. And so our system is really built to communicate to all the stakeholders of that patient, be it, the direct caregivers, any kind of providers, certainly administrators of these facilities, but also patients, family, and loved ones. They can stay well informed of what's going on with their patients and have some insight as to, all those other two factors, right? That there's that there is, proper monitoring and things that are being analyzed. And number two, that there's not only just caregiver engagement, but patient engagement too. It monitors their compliance with things. But yes, giving that communication piece is really the third prong that we're trying to solve, so that we keep everybody informed in real time so that we can intervene and get ahead of these problems.
And I imagine it's structured like on an exception-based type approach, that meaningful notifications are met when something is out of bounds or irregular. It's not a dump of data and we're not bombarding the caregivers with every
correct
incremental update. I mean, it looks like my email inbox, which there's too many unread messages because it's an onslaught of information, but the right information at the right time. Is that
correct? And we can always set that and individualize it to a patient too. So the system is very individualized. So we, for instance, bathing and toileting habits. I mean, we don't have to monitor that on every patient, but there are certain patients we want to do those kind of things on. And we want to know when maybe they're making more frequent bathroom trips because they're more prone towards urinary tract infections. And that could be a warning sign that maybe something's impending. And again, the alerts and warnings are really sent out when there's major things that warn us that we need to intervene. It isn't, a bombardment, like you said, of like every data point. Although you can go in and access that, it's not pushed.
Sure.
The things that are pushed are really the warnings and alerts and reminders when things are out of bounds.
That makes sense. If I may shift a little bit different direction, there seems like the use case is huge and growing, and yet while it seems big, I can tell in prior conversations with you, it's also small, localized, and even personal to you and your founder. Talk to us a little bit about the why. What you could be doing anything with your time, You have successful patient care, story up into this point, and I'm sure your patients would love for you to just continue to keep doing that and spending all of your hours showing up. Why are you and your founder drawn to this?
Yeah, and that's a great question because I think the why is really important. It's what really attracted me to the whole team because there are a lot of whys in our team, and I think that's why they're doing it, right? It's for the purpose of what they're, what drove them to it. Our founder was driven to this because she was an STNA. So she worked as a nurse assistant in college. And so she often saw that some of the care was lacking in nursing homes. But the real passion behind, her reason for creating Carabloom was that she had a grandmother who was doing well in her elder life, but needed some home care. And one night that home care failed her. They weren't doing their job properly. She fell. She suffered a fracture. She was hospitalized, and she died as a result of complications from that fracture, and too soon. So that's what really prompted her to do something about that. She had been working on a tracking system to track precise indoor location of people. And she thought, well, if I had this system built where we were tracking both my grandmother and the caregivers, I would have known that they weren't there and we could have intervened when this was being complained about by her grandmother. Yeah. My situation is the same. I have a sister-in-law who has special needs, and she has lived in a group home for years, and those people have done a fabulous job of taking care of her. But over the last few years, unbeknownst to us, she was going to the bathroom less frequently, but it was so subtle, nobody really noticed. Well, that progressed to the point where her bladder became completely atonic, meaning it's not working at all. And now she's going to have to probably have her bladder cut out and create an ostomy for her to urinate. And other than that, she's a very, physically functional young or 50-year-old gal. And she's not going to be able to go back to her group home because they can't support that kind of ostomy care. Had we had Carabloom involved, we would have known within days or weeks, and certainly within months, that she, had this problem. We would have intervened at an earlier stage and prevented all this that has occurred over the last few years. And so a lot of the people on our team have similar stories to that. And that's really what drives us and gets us up every morning to make sure that we see this product through.
You believe her situation was preventable?
I do. Had we known.
Had you known.
And it's no fault to to her,
sure.
her group home. They're not trained medical people. They're not there to try and diagnose that kind of subtle changes. But had we had it, which her group home is going to be installing this product for other reasons too, we would have been able to intervene. And that's exactly what a lot of nursing home and home healthcare organizations are all trying to do, is really to find ways to understand I guess ways to really find those little blips on the radar screen that indicate that something's impending.
Yeah.
Often elderly folks, when they present with medical conditions, they don't present like younger folks. So like a UTI, they don't present with complaints of burning when they urinate or belly pain or pelvic pain. They present with more things like changes in the way, some confusion maybe, or just not eating as much, or, their activity level just goes down. It's very subtle.
I see.
So finding a system that can help predict that those kind of things are going on so we can intervene at an earlier stage helps to prevent more serious complications from things like a UTI, falls,
makes sense,
and other things.
Yeah, it's really about automated intelligence working hand in hand with human intelligence with caregivers. It's not a replacement, but it sounds like it's an augmentation and an offloading of things that would be very difficult for purely, human-based care to detect and pick up. It sounds like your product has progressed significantly, and there's people actually using it. Can you talk to us about the current state of distribution, phase one, phase two? What does the growth model look like, and who do you want to put this? Whose hands do you want to put this in? The hands of immediately, and then where does it go from there?
Yeah, good question. Loaded one. The product has been built out through several stages, and we're really in kind of the market ready stage now with our product for one facet of the post-acute world.
Okay.
And that's really the home health care, individual home, or maybe small, maybe a group home with a small number of patients in a single home. And so we currently have that installed in those type of settings in home health organizations and patients' individual homes or group homes or private duty nursing, homes with 2 or 3, couples, things like that. So that's the one market. That's what we call kind of the home health market. That's the one of the markets we're certainly targeting. The other is the nursing home. We've learned from phase one here of installing this in the home situation or home care space that we need to do some tech improvements to really put this in a facility with upwards of 100, 200, 300 patients, because aggregating that data we've learned with our current system is going to require some modification. So we're in the stage now of raising money to really build out that piece in the nursing home.
Okay.
And we've talked to a lot of the different nursing homes and have some LOIs, letters of intent signed by those nursing homes to say, yeah, if you build it, we certainly want to pilot that and use it beyond the pilot. So that's where we're at
feedback.
Now.
Yeah.
It's not the technology. It's not a big build. We know what we need to do. It's just time and money to do it.
Sure.
So
yeah. You've also attracted some outside interest, and through your participation in, I believe it was a local incubator or an incubator in the Midwest. Can you tell me that story and what that looks like, what it means to you and the team going forward? And I asked the question through from the lens of social capital is often what takes good ideas and make them great. Not that the idea changes, but it becomes great in the sense that it now has the thrust that it needs to, sail the ocean in U.S. marketplaces. It takes a lot of people and a lot of backers and partners, a lot of positive signals, and you can sometimes it's probably frustrating for founders that I have a good product. Shouldn't the product sell itself? Mm-hmm. And that's often not how it works. Good products need great ecosystems to flourish and go to market. So tell us a little bit about your engagement with this incubator and what that means for you guys.
Yeah, no, it's been wonderful. We've actually had 2. So we started, I think I said I was part of 2 startups, in the past, and I never had to raise money for those. So raising money to me has been new. But we have successfully raised money enough to build the tech to where it is today. Uh-huh. But now to build that team, that's, and to raise additional funds beyond what we've done so far, it really took understanding what message we need to convey, right? That was the first thing, trying to convey everything we've talked about, what the product does, doesn't always come through on a piece of paper that we send out in a deck per se. And so we really reached out to an organization called Bounce Innovation Hub, which is a local, in the Cleveland area. It's a local incubator, and they've been just wonderful to work with. They've really helped us with that messaging, but they also have kind of laid out a roadmap of what we need to do so that they can take us to investors that they know or think that would be interested in. And that's, getting some of this some of our product installed in the home care, so, the
Yeah.
home care space, but also letters of intent with nursing homes that would use it. So that's been one incubator. That's been great. We've been involved with them for the last 6 months and ongoing. We also are part of a more national organization called Creative Destructive Lab, and we got involved with them through the University of Wisconsin, or at that's one of the locations they're at. So we just recently started actively engaging with them. We went through a process of screening that took several months and interviews and presentations and 5-minute presentations.
It puts you through the fire.
Yeah, which are difficult for me as you know, I like to talk about our product, but to do it in 5 minutes is sometimes challenging. But we have successfully navigated that, and we're now actively involved with the Creative Destructive Lab, who will do a lot of the same similar things. They've laid out an objective for us for the next 4 months. And again, they'll put us, once they've kind of screened us, kind of put the CDL stamp on it, and hopefully put us in front of some other investors who will help us, fund the product, from this point.
So, Michael, talk to me a little bit about the future. And as you look both near term, 6 to 12 months, what are some of the milestones your team is working on and chasing? And then even beyond that, what would make your team ecstatic 5 years from now, if you could say we achieved this? Was it qualitative or quantitative? What does success look like?
Yeah, so obviously the short-term goals are clear. The milestones we need to achieve is to build out that nursing home product that we talked about earlier. We're also in part of the funding that we're raising now, going to finish our logistical process for our manufacturing, although we don't really manufacture it, but getting that process of organizing our manufacturing partners so that we can produce product on order.
So a contract manufacturing approach.
Okay. Exactly. So those are the first milestones. That's what we're working on currently. Our growth in year one is really based on those letters of intent and piloting that we're doing with home health organizations. And then in the second quarter of 2023, getting involved in those nursing home pilots, and then building upon those, turning those into paying customers. So that's really phase one, as we call it.
Okay.
The second phase of our growth and success is really based on then the ongoing testing of the efficacy and the financial and clinical efficacy of the product, and disseminating that to other folks in those home health and nursing home markets. And so that's really what we plan to do as the second phase, to really build out growth and sales in those two markets again. But then we'll, once we get it through the phase of really doing that testing of that financial efficacy for our clients and clinical, is really start to sell it to the home customer, because there's plenty of moms, dads, grandmas, grandpas that need this kind of a device to help them kind of maintain their, as you put it in the beginning, age at home.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the plan in years 2 and 3 as well. But I think the ultimate success will be that when we prove out in the nursing home and home health, that we'll do what we call large enterprise deals. When we're dealing with a nursing home that has a footprint of 19,000 beds across the country, and they've seen success in some of their more troubled homes or troubled nursing homes, that we can expand that through a large customer like that, and really make a real serious impact on a larger number of patients. That's always been my passion. I love doing hospital medicine. I love doing it. I love doing nursing home rounds on, 30 or 40 patient. But what really drives me is the ability to impact thousands or even multiple thousands.
Yeah.
And I can't do that as
There's
a
only
physician.
one of you.
Yeah. But if I can be part of a team that can build systems that can do that, that to me is what success is when we can start to impact a lot of, a large number of patients each day.
Yeah. As a closing thought, having worked with several startups, you're now the CEO of this emerging one that has some great momentum behind it. As you look out into the future about, 3 to 5 years with that vision of scaling to thousands and becoming more of an institutional enterprise class platform that delivers improved quality of patient life and nursing home operational effectiveness for the nursing homes to, keep their funding, to maintain a state of profitability, and keep their ratings through all of this augmented assistance through technology. What do you wish was in the marketplace to help you scale? Either, as a founder, as a CEO, what do you hope is there? What do you wish was there? Are there any gaps or any places that you say we could be more successful if we had X, Y, and Z?
Boy, I've never really thought of that question
and
before.
I'm sure you've had some pain points in the past where maybe the team has hit the wall and you've had to hit the pause button, and maybe some of those pauses were macro events that were bigger than, they were untenable, unsolvable. You just had to wait it out, ride the storm, and bring your idea back. But is there anything that you would like to see different?
Yeah, well, I think, the biggest challenge, I think, for when we talk with some of the clients is the return on investment of this, right? Do they really want to put this in? Is it really going to show? Are they going to be able to afford it? And is there going to be some kind of return on that? So I think the biggest challenge or the biggest thing that I'd like to see happen that would really help that would be that if we can prove that this device is close to or gets some kind of approval as a medical device through the FDA, then that opens up a whole new world for all the users and clients, because we can look at insurance reimbursement to offset some of the costs of this product. So it doesn't fall on patients or families or nursing home operators or home health operators because their margins are small.
Yeah.
And so making an investment in a product like this, it has to work.
Yeah.
Number one, and there has to be some kind of return. But if we had that,
accessibility,
if we had that kind of approval, where some of that cost could be offset, then we're off to the races to doing what we all want to do is help more people.
And you're not the only one building these types of technology-based devices to improve patient care. I can't remember the exact name of the company, but the store earlier in maybe it was 80s and 90s I just know that there was certain medical device innovation going on, and we'll have to look up the name offline. But they came to, those who would be deemed competitors came together as industry to work with the FDA and say, this is a new class, this is a new type. We need better communication between industry and the regulatory bodies so that this can, be approved. And maybe that's something down the road that, I don't know if it's a consortium of types or you and your peers, that you're all chasing the same end goal, and there'll be time to compete later. But maybe speaking with the three voices together becomes a much louder message than just one voice.
Exactly. And we have remained open to talking with some of those other organizations that are involved in all kinds of patient monitoring, and will be ongoing to continue those talks, because we're not trying to conquer the world. We're trying to solve a problem. Yeah. And that's
you guys
the
have a
ultimate
shared
goal.
Vision. Yeah.
Right. And so if there is a shared vision, we welcome that, because that'll help us all get to where we want to be.
Great.
ultimately in the end.
Thank you so much for your time, for coming in today.
Thank you. This
Yeah.
has been wonderful. And
Yeah.
thanks to all the sponsors and folks that help make this possible.
Yeah. Please send my greetings to Lindsay and the team, and I'm sure we'll talk again soon.
Will do.
Again, Dr. Michael Huber, CEO of Carabloom.
Thanks.
Thank you.